Welcome to this week's installment of Reading with Robin, your number one destination since 2002 for insightful author interviews and discussions on everything literary. And with no further introduction, your host, Robin Call.
I am so excited to have Courtney Maum on the show today to talk about Before and After the Book Deal. This book is just such a treat. It is just chock full of such useful information and told in such a glorious Courtney Maum way, and it's entertaining, and I'm not writing a book, and I loved it and soaked it up. So it's for everybody. There's things in this book, whether you're writing a book or not, that pertain. So it transcends the writer. Courtney is the author of the novels Costa Ligre, and she was in Rhode Island with us at the Cardigan Connection. It feels like just yesterday. Also, I'm having so much fun here without you, and Touch, which you were also here. And you're making a return visit. So this is going to be Courtney's third time, we'll talk about it in a second, back to Rhode Island. And Before and After the Book Deal, A Writer's Guide to Finishing, Publishing, Promoting, and Surviving Your First Book is out just a few weeks. Courtney's writing has been widely published in such outlets as the New York Times, the Oprah magazine, Poets and Writers. She is also the founder of the collaborative retreat program Cabins, currently accepting applications, and she also has a writing advice newsletter, Get Published, Stay Published. So if you go to CourtneyMaum.com, you can sign up for that, also see where she'll be appearing. This Monday, the Cardigan Connection will be proudly presenting Courtney's Before and After the Book Deal in collaboration with What Cheer Writers Club. So for more information, find us on Facebook, and the event starts at 7 p.m., downtown Providence. Anyway, Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, so this will be your third in-person visit with us, so we're thrilled. And it was funny because when I was reading the book and you talked about, there's so many things, but you talked about the author tour, and I was remembering your first visit here and the suitcase debacle. So I was like,
right, yeah.
I didn't know. And we use that. We actually use the Courtney Maum reference when we explain to authors what we like on the stage, and we suggest.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. No, you're a go-to.
Yeah.
We're like, so this one time, Courtney Maum came to visit. She didn't have her stuff and went to Thayer Street.
Her suitcase back at her house. Yeah, that was, I traveled, it's about 3 hours from my house, and I was in, gym shorts. And I got to the hotel, and there was actually a valet, and he went to the back of my car to take my luggage, and there was no luggage, and then I saw it. I saw my luggage in my kitchen, and I went to Goodwill and got a whole crazy outfit.
It was a fabulous outfit, and it was a fabulous story, and we tell people that. We're like, you may not have the greatest story like Courtney had, but you have a story. Get up on the stage, tell it, and read 2 pages. And does everybody listen? No.
No. So, yeah.
You set the bar very high with that performance.
Clothes. I'm glad. I'm glad. If only the rest of my career was as easy as it was to forget my suitcase.
You do make it look uber easy, that's for sure. So Before and After the Book Deal, I remember when you were telling us about this, and then it arrived, and it's just, even the cover, it's just so inviting. And this is the kind of book where if you are a writer, if you are thinking about being a writer, if you have friends who are writers, if you ever wrote anything down, it's so relatable, and the anecdotes and the authors that you reference and who supplied their own advice here, it is just fabulous. Are you thrilled with this? You must be thrilled with this book.
I am really happy, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, it's a book you can give to friends and family members, or even people who just love to read, because when I was originally pitching this, people thought, you're crazy, Courtney, if you think that anyone's going to read this but someone who specifically wants to get a book deal. And I really stuck up for myself and also the project, saying, I think you're underestimating how much people are ready to hear about what it's like to professionalize creativity. It's rough, and there's a lot of ups, but there's really a lot of downs. And the wonderful thing about this book, and something I'm really proud of, was how candid all the people I spoke with were. They were really, there's so much opaqueness and secrecy in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
people were really, really ready to talk, and most of them on record. And with some difficult truths, So it makes the book, I think it is fun to read because it's funny. The tone is funny, but the information that you're getting when you, my hope is that when you finish the book, you realize you've not only learned something, but hopefully you're a little moved, by hearing like what exactly goes into the creation of a book, not just for the person writing it, but for the giant team behind the book, which includes readers. You learn more about this ecosystem. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, it is all inclusive. You captured everything. Everything I was reading sort of made me think of something else, and then I'm like, oh, she covered it. I was just, and also being on this side of the book world, it speaks to me in another way, and it really had me thinking, but just, all inclusive of creative processes. I think it's, and the candidness with which you got most, like you said, most authors and people in the industry to speak is something, people need to know. It's like what to expect when you're expecting, but for writers, that your girlfriend's going to tell you, this is, this is what you need to know, and it is written in such a great tone, with such a great tone, and your humor and snarkiness, and it's, so it's really fun. I think it's a treasure of a book, and it is. You're welcome. So it's been out just, I think, about 3 weeks or so. So what are you hearing? Has anything surprised you, or that kind of thing?
Well, I don't think I've ever had a response like this intimate of response. I'm getting emails and direct messages and photographs and all sorts of things from all the different platforms. There's so many different ways to receive messages now, and people are saying things. They're saying this honestly saved my life, or I thought I was all alone. People that I don't. Some people I don't know at all, and then some who I'm sort of acquaintances with who admitted, I didn't recognize how hard of a time I was having with, my first book performance until I read this book, and now I realize that it's okay to feel this. It's a very, really, really intimate notes that reinforce, prove to me that what I was trying to do with the book, which is a sort of therapeutic outreach, seems to be working. And I also really
resonating,
love the messages.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I really appreciate the messages I'm getting from veteran writers who have 2, 3, 4 books out, who are saying to their followers, read this anyway. There's still things worth learning, and that means a lot to me because I have 4 books now, and this book actually helped me, and will continue to help me. I think because of all the anecdotes and wisdom that people share.
Yes, you taking your own advice and the advice that you gathered, and it is such an amazing collaborative effort within yourself and the writing community, and it's I think that's one of the things too, the takeaway of after many books, sort of recentering and remembering why people are doing this, and also the expectations. And whenever someone is in a project and feels like it's only me, we know it's never only us anyway, but when you're bombarded and you talk a lot about social media and all of, like you say, all the ways people are communicating with you, that can be overwhelming, yet it's important to be in there. So it's like a vicious cycle, and then how can you not compare yourself yet? You need to know what else is going on, and that's got to be very exhausting, because sort of just thinking about that cycle and what those expectations are, and you really lay it out there of what's important, how to detach from, I think you said something about a roommate hiding a password code, or, in all of these programs. And, so talk about the good, the bad, and whatever the truth is about how to make social media work without stressing you out.
Well, first of all, I think people have to decide whether or not they even want to be on it. That adheres mostly to people who aren't currently, and they get a book deal, and their publisher says, hey, we noticed you're not on social media, we're going to need you to get on.
Right.
I do think that one can push back, because if you've never been on social media by this point, there's probably a bit of a reason that you're not there. And it really will serve you to be the truest reflection of yourself, because the people who have been forced by their publisher to be on, Instagram and Twitter, you can tell. They're so uncomfortable. Yeah. They're like the person who's too drunk at the party, and it's just, it's very awkward. And it doesn't, I think it pushes people away from your book rather than the opposite. So, there's going to be a lot of pressure if you're already on social media. There's going to be tons of pressure to build your follower count. But what I always tell people is the writing is what matters most, not the tweeting. Because honestly, you can get yourself up to a respectable follower count, and those people don't buy your book. It doesn't. The mathematics don't always work out, right? Like you have a big follower count, you expect everyone to buy your book, and it doesn't work like that.
It's tricky. No, the math does not always shake out on that, right?
No, not at all. And what does work is if you keep producing quality content, especially if you already have had a book published, you will find outlets. So, for example, you cannot get a second book deal unless you have a second book ready or a proposal ready. So if after your publication or during your publication, you have decided that the focus of your energy needs to be tweeting and Instagramming and trying to build your follower count, well, you're going to be awfully surprised 2 months later where your agent says, okay, by the way, do you have a pitch? Do you have a proposal ready for your next project? Whoops. Yeah. No, I've been tweeting and trying to be funny and using the right hashtags. So, you have to prioritize, because what you're going to be hearing from the team a lot of times is up your platform, elevate your platform, build your follower count, because they're going to think that you should also be working on your second book. Yeah, the content matters more, and something that I find that's pretty good advice is rather than trying willy-nilly, throwing spaghetti around the ceiling to see what sticks and what's working for you on social media, your best bet is to either pull out themes from your current manuscript that you can build off the book pieces around, essays and op-eds, or if you have an idea, sort of outline of what your second project is going to be, do the same thing, because you will get so much more mileage from having a well-written essay placed in an outlet that gets a lot of traffic. That's a much more holistic way to bring followers to your various accounts than, just doing hashtag follow Friday every month. Just focus. I think that you should be putting the writing first. But as for the pros, because there are a lot of pros with social media and benefits, it's an absolutely fantastic networking tool. And I mean, unbelievable. I just talked with an author yesterday who is getting his book option from a major producer just from 2 Twitter exchanges. Wow. They sort of had the right friends in common, and the guy put him on a plane the next day. And of course, that's an outsized example, but
but it can happen.
But I find I'm able to tweet or to mention big name authors whose books I adored, and they respond. And they exist. Yeah. They're there, and sometimes you can go into private messages. You don't want to be stalking people, but, there's a proximity that doesn't exist in the real world where, first of all, you have to be invited to the literary party. You have to live in a place where you could go to the fancy literary party. And then what? If you see a writer or a publisher, an editor you want to talk to, you have to have the guts to go up to them. It's a bit easier and more level. I think the playing field is more level on social media. And that's a massive benefit. And, of course, hearing from your readers and being able to see how your readers are enjoying the book or where they're reading the book, all of these things are really great. But, unfortunately, social media doesn't come with a manual, and it doesn't come with, it doesn't shut down at a certain point. It should, unless you install some sort of productivity app. But you have to, for me, I actually pay attention to the feeling in my stomach. And when I recognize that I've moved away from networking and am moving into some sort of zone of
rabbit hole.
I don't know, or the rabbit hole, or I realize I'm probably about to see something I don't want to see, I have gotten a lot better about just closing the computer or putting the phone down and walking away, because nothing good comes from too much time on the internet. Nothing. Never.
Nothing.
Impossible.
No. At some level, it's going to just go to that place. And, thinking about what you said earlier about authenticity and the writing comes first, and all of that makes so much sense, because as far as placing an essay or trying to figure out where you're going to get, like you said, the most mileage for the energy you're spending is. And a lot of these things are good advice, beyond the writer world, which is why there were so many things that I enjoyed and connected to. And I'm speaking with Courtney Maum. You can find her at CourtneyMaum.com, on Twitter, on Instagram, every place, this place. And her brand new book is Before and After the Book Deal, A Writer's Guide to Finishing, Publishing, Promoting, and Surviving Your First Book. And Courtney will be with us on Monday the 27th at What Cheer Writers Club, 7 o'clock. And for ticket information, find us on Facebook at The Cardigan Connection and click on events, and you can find it there. Or you can always send me a message on the same places, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. It's all how you use these tools that we have and sort of prioritizing. You talk in the book about being on book tour and writing. I forget under which context of which other things you have in your life that take your time, and you mention people who breathe or something like that, other people, other jobs. This is not everybody's full-time, and in most cases not a person's full-time job. And you talk about MFAs, if they're worth the time and the money. Can you speak to some of those things?
Yeah, definitely. So I do not have an MFA. I also didn't major in English in college. I did go to college, but I majored in comparative literature. For me, the MFA question is simpler than people think, actually. I think it comes down to money, actually. I think that if you have either someone else footing the bill for your time in an MFA program, or you have, you're independently wealthy, or you have the money saved, then why not go? But you have to also, it's not just having the money for that 2 years. You also need to understand, you need sort of a 2-year buffer after you come out of that MFA program, where you might not have a job, or you might get an adjuncting job that pays, $3,000 every 6 months. And where do you live? If you live in a place like New York City, and I mean, honestly, unless you live with your parents, how is that going to get you very far? So I think the number one consideration is whether or not you can afford it for the duration of the program, and also for, a year and a half to 2 years afterward, where you might have a hard time finding a job because the academic market is restricted. Now, after that, for people who are on the fence for many different reasons, it could be their age, it could be that they already have a family and don't want to sort of up and relocate themselves or leave their families, or they have very restricted finances. What I tell people all the time is to start off by investing in a summer writers' conference.
Good idea.
These are usually 4 days to 10 days. Some of my favorites are, Tin House has an excellent summer program. They also now offer a much more intimate winter program, like on the ocean in Oregon. I'm going to be teaching at that. And,
oh, wow. They're always in these beautiful locations. I have
they're
a friend
beautiful.
Who did the Tin House last, I think in the summer. Was it Oregon? Is that, Yeah, it's always in Portland. And the summer one's always in Portland on the Reed campus. You have Sewanee. You have, of course, you have Breadloaf, sort of the longest one. There's an amazing program called Disquiet that's run by Zank Books that takes place in Portugal. I have a lot of these listed in my book. But, the thing is that these summer programs attract the very best of the best in faculty from all over the world, not just the United States. Much better faculty than you would get at one single MFA program, because they wouldn't be able to afford
this level of this amount of sort of stars, right?
Right.
So you have this amazing stretch of time where you're exposed to what it's like to be in a writing workshop. You're exposed to what it feels like to be around hundreds of writers, and you're exposed, to great teachers. So I think it's a wonderful microcosm, a testing ground, if you will, to help you understand whether or not you even want to be in an MFA program. So, for example, for me, there was times where I thought about MFA programs or low residency MFA programs, but then I went to the writers' conferences myself, quite a few of them, and I don't like the writing workshops. I love to teach them, but as a writer, listen, other people's opinions are absolutely valid, but at this point in my career, I don't know, I have readers I trust, but I'm also learned to be a really good reviser of my own work. And for me, the writer's workshop, having 12 people give you all kinds of feedback from all over the place, it took me a long time to build up the skills to understand how to even listen, like incorporate or not incorporate their feedback. And that's not necessarily taught at the MFA level. You're just sort of exposed to all of this feedback and then left to your own devices. And you can really mess up your manuscript. This happened to me. I sort of ruined the manuscript because I tried to incorporate everyone's feedback because I was young and I thought, well, if I'm here,
you're getting all this
I guess everyone's information is valid. So I really believe, especially for people who are at a bit older age, go to one of these programs. They're not cheap, so you have to save up for them as well. They're hard to get into. And just see how you feel. Like I'm also someone, it's a bit much for me to be around that many writers, day after day, especially super talented. Like I got a little overstimulated, It's really important to see how you react because you don't want to go to an MFA program and realize that you're such an introvert you can't deal, and then you just hide in your room for 2 years at some expensive program. So try summer program.
That's a good way to start.
If you can't do that, there's excellent online programs. Catapult, my current publisher, has amazing faculty teaching these online classes, and just start there. If you wouldn't you have some interest in the country of Turkey, right? You wouldn't move there if you've never been there before. Wouldn't you maybe go on vacation,
try it out,
return
get an Airbnb,
home,
something,
understand what kind of things you need to pack? You would, right? The fact that people just launch themselves into the MFA program because they like to write has always struck me as, because it's not just the writing. This is also it's a structure and a mechanism and this didactic process is involved. You might not like it, but you might love it,
Right.
But
that's good advice to start with, maybe a workshop or an online course. You talk about being the ambassador of your own book and talking about debuts and what's expected and what to expect on a tour, how to build a tour, what to expect from your publisher. I mean, there's so much wonderful advice in this book, and we probably could have like a 10-hour discussion. I know you can't, and neither can I. But that's how I sort of felt like I was just dog-earing so many of these things, and it's just fascinating to me. And I love the way you lay it out. It all makes so much sense. And you spoke to quite a number of writers, like you said, people who were most people on the record. Was there anybody that you really want to hear from that you didn't get to, or that somebody that really surprised you with what they shared?
I think for your first question, there's a section on the film world, if you will, Hollywood, adapting your own projects or getting your options sold or what. And I reached out to a lot of women first. I really wanted to hear from women for this particular part of the book because, Hollywood has been such a male-dominated industry. It was really important to me to hear from the women. And something that was surprising that I didn't see coming, but I understand now, is that women really did not want to talk about this. They were so – it's and I mean, I know this from personal experience, when something's optioned or you are maybe in the running to adapt your own book, it all seems like such an amazing dream that could burst at any moment if you talk about it. And it also, it takes so long. Like I have a sort of option potential screenplay thing going on right now, and the contract has been sitting, you know, at the lawyers going back and forth for 6 months. And I know this happened to Joanna Rakoff. Also, I wrote about that in my newsletter.
Yes.
Just the contractual negotiations take so long that people were frightened to talk about it and then have the entire thing blow up, not from the fact of having talked about it, but just from the sheer amount of time that passes and people lose interest. And so it's really from I think a place of superstition.
Never can underestimate the power of superstition.
No women would talk to me about any level of involvement in the Hollywood thing. So, you know, I had an executive talk to me. I had talent agents talk to me, but no writer, no female writer.
Right.
And, again, that's fine. It's just that I regret when people read that section, they're going to see all these male voices and think like, oh, why didn't Courtney speak to women?
What's up with
Courtney? I couldn't get, no women would talk to me. So,
well, I hope everybody asks you that question, and then you'll get the opportunity to share that piece of it. And it's funny, that's one of the questions, and I've been doing this for many years. I never inquire about a book going to TV or to movie, to any of that. And I do realize certainly how long it can take. I mean, if it's out there and it's been, it's in the dailies, maybe, but it would have to be pretty close because it does. I know that things change and there's so much that goes on beyond the scenes, and that's why I always cringe when the first question at an event is, so do you hope, who would you cast as in your movie of your book? It's like, no.
Right, as if you have any control whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not only, is your book going to be a movie, but who would you put in there? And
right. Yeah. No, it's a bit of a minefield.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is a battlefield. Exactly, as Pat Benatar once sang. I think one of the other things that I so enjoyed, and I know I have to let you go, but I'm so excited that you'll be here this Monday at What's Your Writers Club, 7 p.m. It's Monday the 27th with Courtney, and we will be talking all about, we will have an end time. Don't worry, they're not going to keep you too long. But it's before and after the book deal, a writer's guide to finishing, publishing, promoting, and surviving your first book. And go to CourtneyMaum.com and sign up for her newsletter. Find her on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. You talk about the book after the book, the come down, and the sophomore slump, and that sort of thing, just with our few remaining moments. Speak to that, and then I'll see you soon.
I'm really looking forward to returning to Providence, where I went to college.
So regarding that too.
Regarding the sophomore slump, I mean, people who publish a first book are usually in two different situations. Either they had a 2-book deal, and so they have some sense contractually of what they're supposed to deliver, or they have sort of a big blue sky in front of them. And the thing is, I mean, it depends sort of what kind of agent you have. But, with my agent, for example, I was very caught up with my first book in its sort of unexpected success. It did really well. No one saw that coming because it was a debut. I came out of nowhere. And so I was sort of surfing that wave, and then my agent called and said, okay, so things are going well. This is the time to try to sell the next book. And I was like, on what?
What?
And I don't want to say scrambled because I did have some ideas, but I put, I did, what was fiction, you usually, if you're going to try to sell on a partial, you write about 3 chapters and maybe have an outline of what is going to happen in the rest of the book. And we were able to sell my second book, Touch, based on that partial. Now, the problem is I only gave myself a year to write it, to deliver that manuscript. And I thought, like, okay, well, I've just written this book and it's done well and I know how to write and I'm quick, so off we go. But I hadn't left myself enough time to fumble around and fail. Like I'm not a first draft writer. Nobody is.
Sure.
And my agent bless her, had said, you need 2 years. And I was just feeling cocky. So I think that happens to a lot of people who've had some level of success where they get excited, especially if the money on the table is enough that they can dedicate a lot of time to the writing of their next book,
so
and they think like, okay, woohoo, off we go. It's, let's do a due date that's a year in the future. But like the come down is really brutal, and once your book is out of the public view, no one's talking about it anymore. For most people, there's a sort of surprise and like light depression that comes in where they've just been so used to being tweeted about and reviewed and all these wonderful things that can happen. And then, I have a funny part in the book about when my editor, she'd had my thumbnail of my book under her signature, and I was so used to seeing that. And then one day I got an email from her, and it had the thumbnail of someone else's book. And I was like, oh, God, that's what's happening. They move on, and they're putting their money and energy behind other projects, and, like, I'm supposed to move on, too. But we're not.
Bizarre,
we're not really told like how to do that, and how you do that is different in nonfiction than it is in fiction. It's different for, God forbid, you want to turn in a short story collection or something. There's all these different ways about going about it. So the book does a lot of hand-holding to walk people through the different paths of the sophomore project, which, by the way, don't have to be a book. Like, some people are much better served by, I started this learning collective, The Cabins, after my first book. Emma Straub, it wasn't her first book, of course, but like she purchased a bookshop. Rachel Kong started a learning collaborative as well. Like, a lot of authors go on to do something else that's creative, that keeps their sort of name out there and keeps them connected to the community. But, there's this pressure to have a book out every 2 or 3 years, and for most people that's an untenable schedule, and it's okay. It's okay to take time. It really is. And actually,
that's really important. People don't say that enough, and I think that along with so many other pearls in this book will speak to so many people who want to write, and it just is such it's like the word on writing, but I've never read anything like this, and it's all here in this one book, and I think that is,
it's a cheap MFA program. It's only $16. It's much cheaper than an MFA.
Right? If that isn't a sales pitch, what is? It's the perfect book, and it is a great book to give to read for yourself if you have a writer in your world, and or a gift for somebody. It's a great book for book club discussion. Oh my God!
Yeah,
everybody has what to say. There's nothing like nonfiction for a chat, and this and people who are just so immersed and fascinated by the world of writing will get like an insider's peek into some real honest chat, and it's fabulous. I know I have to let you go, and I will be very thrilled to see you, and I can't wait to hear the discussion Monday night. We are too, and it is Courtney Maum, Before and After the Book Deal, A Writer's Guide to Finishing, Publishing, Promoting, and Surviving Your First Book. Find her at CourtneyMaum.com, and while you're there, check out all of her books because they're all fabulous. I'm having so much fun here without you. And Touch, and Costa Libre, and now Before and After the Book Deal. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you for having me. I'll see you on Monday.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's installment of the Reading with Robin podcast. As always, our full-length podcasts will be available right here on robincall.com. We appreciate your support and look forward to having you over next week when we chat with our next featured guest. Have a great week and happy reading.